Welcome to our presentation on our data findings on the project of bike sharing. My name is Kyle Johnson, and in this project I was in charge of the introduction. This is my partner, Chris Drescher. He created the graphs in Tableau, and then we both worked on the creation of the model and our recommendations.
For this project, we used a data set that we received in class. The data set was mostly clean. There were no missing values. The only work that had to be done on it was to create an extra column that indicated whether or not demand type was high or low for that hour of the day. This was based off of whether or not count exceeded 100 or did not exceed 100 for that hour of the day. For this project, we had to use two different models. The first model we used was a decision tree model. The first one was run with count as the target variable. This model returned findings that indicated that registered users had the greatest influence on increasing demand. So for an increase in registered users and a decrease in casual users, you can create the highest possible demand for that day. The second model was using demand type as the target variable. For that model, it indicated that when demand type was high, there would be an increase in demand, while when demand type was low, there was a decrease in demand.
For our final model, we used cluster analysis, which came back showing that our top three segments are people who took the bikes early in the morning on a nice day, people who rode their bike early in the morning regardless of the temperature, and finally people who rode bikes in the early evening on a nice day.
Our first chart that we have is indicating year-over-year growth, with this blue line showing the year 2015 and this yellow line showing the year 2016. As you can see, as the months warm up, you can see a trend of increase in riding and a decrease in ridings as the months tend to cool down, with the year 2016 having an overall higher amount of riders. The average growth between these years was 40%.
This is average users by hour of the day, and as I said previously in the second slide, there's an increase early in the morning and an increase in riders early in the evening. This is probably shown through people taking their bikes to work, and then again there's a little bump around lunchtime. People are probably taking a bike to lunch, and finally there's a large spike in the early evening. People are either taking their bike home or maybe just going out into the town with their friends.
This graph shows average monthly riders on weekdays and weekends. This darker blue indicates that the day was a weekday, while this lighter blue indicates a weekend. As you can see, there's more consistent riders during the work week over the entire year. However, there are more riders during the weekends during these warmer months, with a steep fall off as the months tend to cool down.
This is users per season based on months. As you can see, it reinforces the fact that people are riding their bikes in the warmer months or the more neutral months, with larger months being July, October, or April. Again, the summer months where it's warm, people are riding their bikes. Over here, January, February, December, it's colder, and you can tell that there aren't as many people riding bikes because their cars have heaters, so they're more likely to take their car because they don't want to be exposed to the elements when it's cold outside.
So some recommendations that we have for this company would be to increase registered users, either by offering discounts or using a reward system. This can be based off of a system similar to Uber, who uses a system where when a registered user gets an unregistered user to sign up for the system, then they'll be able to receive a free ride.
Also, we would recommend that these bike sharing companies be selective of their location. You see it in fast food restaurants. They're very selective. They put a lot of time and research into where they're going to put their restaurants because they don't want to waste their money. I would recommend that since people are more likely to use their bikes in the warmer months or the more neutral months, I would recommend that you put them in a hotter climate, maybe Dallas or maybe even Florida. Florida, it's almost always nice in Florida, so people are very likely to get out and use their bikes. I wouldn't recommend that you put it in a place like Chicago. A lot of their months are very cold or even snowy, where it would even be almost impossible to ride a bike. Finally, we recommend that these companies always collect more data. It's right there in front of them. They're using their bikes. They might as well collect it when they can. because it'll better train the model and it will ultimately lead to a greater profit margin for the company.
That's it.
That is all.